need to understand the medium you're working in, and that medium might be very technological, but you, more importantly, need to understand the nature of the human mind and how the technology and the psychology are going to come together to create an experience that's going to be meaningful. Computer science was definitely where I started, but I have kind of a mixed background. I used to be a circus performer, was a professional juggler for some time, but I went to school for computer science and then later for computer networking, and studied some business along the way. So it was kind of a mix of education there. And this is another advantage of my circus background, right? Because you look at the way a circus works, you have people with these incredibly diverse skills. What it takes to walk on a wire versus what it takes to juggle versus what it takes to play musical instruments. These are things that are all really different. People coming from these very different disciplines, but all working together to create an experience that couldn't be had any other way. And you look at what it takes to make a modern video game. You need writers, and you need painters, and you need sculptors, and animators, and musicians, and business people. You need these people with really, really different backgrounds that are all so different that nobody could understand all of them. And you have to get them all to agree to kind of pull in the same direction. And you can only do it if you trust each other. And the only way to trust each other is to have respect for each other's disciplines and abilities. The important thing in terms of bringing together multiple different disciplines and getting them to work together to make something none of them could make alone comes in the form of valuing those bridges, the ability to build the bridges in between.
I think that being creative it's inherent to everyone. And when people hear the word creative, sometimes they do become intimidated. It's like, oh, I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't write a book. But it doesn't have to mean that. Some of my favorite people I've worked with will be like, well, let me try and show you. And they will just make me a little napkin sketch doodle. And I'll be like, oh, I understand you. And then I'll elaborate that, I'll build on it. And together, that idea that came from a person who didn't feel they were an artist, with an artist backing it up, like, now you have that idea.
When I look at the backgrounds of people who've been really successful as game designers, some of them have come from a very technical place, but other people have come from a background of history, and they've made their career making games about historical events. Other people come from architecture, and they make their career out of making games about places and spaces and building cities and building houses.
That's why we look for bringing people in from diverse backgrounds, different industries, different walks of life, because those ideas are going to make our product stronger. We encourage people to share those perspectives, those experiences that they've had, because in the end, we're making experiences for other people, and those are stronger, I think, when you have different perspectives, different voices that have contributed to putting that together.
Good ideas can come from absolutely anywhere, and so building a culture where your habit is, how do we connect everybody together and share the ideas across these bridges? That's the fastest way to create meaningful, successful creativity for any organization. The important thing to realize is that everything is rooted in the human experience and what does it mean to be a person. The only point or purpose of any technology, of anything that you might create, is for that human experience. And you can focus on just the technological side if you want to, but you really risk having it fail to connect with the people that it's meant to engage with.
Communication visually and in text should be something that we value more, because whatever your role is, it's fundamentally so important to being able to collaborate, to being able to teach and grow the people around you, to being able to innovate and get ideas across.
Get your inspiration from everywhere else. And that always stayed with me. And it was certainly true for me as a juggler, but I found it true for everything. I learned a tremendous amount that's been relevant to me for making computer games when doing those performances. Because when you do those kinds of performances, you learn about how to interact with an audience, you learn how to read an audience. You need to make sure the audience stays to the end and stays engaged to the end. And so if you're losing them, you start to realize it. And I realized when we were doing our playtesting, we'd make a new version of the game, we'd bring in people to play it. A lot of people would look at the screen. I realized, no, I need to look at the people. And I found myself using the same skill of kind of reading like, oh, we're losing them in this moment. We need to change the game so that we kind of hold their interest and all of that. The best inspiration comes from everywhere else. How can I connect things together that no one else would have thought to connect before? Henry Ford. People talk about Henry Ford inventing the assembly line for automobiles. And how did he do that? Did he just think of it? No. Someone said, hey, Henry, we're going to take a tour of a slaughterhouse. It's a different kind of business. Do you want to check it out? And he's like, I've never done that. I don't know how it works. I guess I'll come and see it. And so he goes and he sees this, and he sees the way that meat is processed in this facility, where this butcher deals with the shoulder, and this one deals with the leg, and on and on. And he's looking at this and thinking, why don't we do cars like this? Just had never occurred to anyone to do that. And that was the birth of the assembly line. He had the open-mindedness to say, what's a better way to build cars? Let me ask a butcher. That's not the way most people think. There's possibilities for creativity everywhere because suddenly everything becomes interesting, because every field of study could be connected to what it is you care about the most. The thing that I really think that everyone benefits the most from is practice with creative problem solving. And it's particularly problem solving outside your domain. Someone with a background in English literature, get involved with designing a new airport. Based on what do you know, what can you bring to that? And people are afraid because they're like, well, I don't know anything about airports. But what do you have to lose by having these conversations? Creating situations where people with different backgrounds are working together to solve each other's problems. And I think that's the most valuable thing that you can do to make yourself relevant, because now you're becoming relevant to other people. And then you learn something that actually helps you because you get a perspective that you never would have gotten some other way. The more that you think about every discipline as being separate, the more you limit each of those disciplines. It's easy to be intimidated by difficult technological disciplines or by artistic disciplines that you feel like if someone doesn't have innate talent, there's no point in even engaging with it. And none of that is helpful. You don't need to know everything about a discipline to be able to connect with it and to benefit from it.
I'd love for people to change their way of thinking about these words that somehow tend to be, scary or weird or not as valuable as other words, right? It's like, oh, creativity and arts and humanities, technology. That's a word that means success, right? That means that's where you should go. More creative studies lend themselves to these fundamental skills that I think we need in order to really drive aspects of technology at all.
More and more, there are just opportunities to connect things with multimedia. That combination of words and pictures and animations and psychology is the best way to connect any discipline to any other discipline. The biggest advances that are going to be happening in this century and the next one are going to come from connecting one discipline to another. Working together, we have the ability to do things none of us could do alone.